This woman knocked over everything in the house, and then she drew her own blood and flung it all over the house and smeared it all over the floor to create a crime scene. Then she puts a stick with blood on it in the stove and then disappeared. The woman's name was Amy. At a party, she met the charming Nick, but marriage can be tiresome. On the morning of their 5th anniversary, Nick went to the bar to complain to his sister, but he was called back by a neighbor and saw what he saw. Nick was shocked. His wife had disappeared. Then the police arrived. A careful policewoman saw blood on the closet. Apparently, what Amy had set up had attracted the attention of the police. By nightfall, the police found a letter left by Amy in the closet at the scene. It read Clue 1. The police called Nick. Nick said that it was his and Amy's intimate game, and guessed that the destination was his office. Then they found Clue 2 in his office. The letter suggested that the next destination was the brownstone. The police also found a pair of sexy panties. The police knew what was going on. He asked where the brownstone was. Nick said he didn't know. But at night, he sneaks to the cabin alone. He found Clue 3 here. The police arrived here too. Nick hid the letter and told the police that his father had made this house, and it was blue. Then he drove away. Nick opened Clue 3. It says where to get candy for the 5th anniversary. A late-night text message startled Nick. The moment he pushed open the door, a woman came at Nick in a frenzy. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, but Nick said it was the last time. After dawn, the woman left. Nick turned around and saw his sister. The sister was hysterical and scolded Nick. By nightfall, Nick was speaking at Amy's rescue meeting. Suddenly, a neighbor came out and accused Nick. He told everyone that Amy was pregnant. There was an uproar. Nick ran for his life. This woman in front of him had a hammer in her hand. She hit herself very hard. It turns out that she was trying to make it look like her husband had committed domestic violence. Amy made friends with her pregnant neighbor. She would tell her about her husband's violence from time to time. She maxed out her husband's credit cards when her husband wasn't looking, signing up for her own life insurance, invited the pregnant neighbor to her home, took advantage of the opportunity to get the pregnant woman's urine to fake a fake pregnancy, and finally, he kept a diary of the record. And all of this, all to get back at her cheating husband. Nick had just gotten home. The policewoman questioned Nick with the lab results. There were bloodstains on the kitchen floor that had been wiped up, and she raised Amy's life insurance to $1. $2 million. Nick broke a glass and refused to communicate, so the cops had no choice but to stop. They went back to the house and searched it. They found the diary in the stove. Everything about Amy, but at the end, it said, "He may truly kill me." Meanwhile, Nick cracked the secret of Clue 3 and found the room where the candy was hidden. The moment he pushed the door open, he saw a room full of luxuries, all circumstantial evidence of his wife's murder. Nick took one of the boxes back to his sister's house. They deciphered the meaning. It was all Amy's doing. Nick went to a lawyer who specializes in these cases. The lawyer said it was ridiculous, but he accepted Nick's request. Nick also got a tip from Amy's ex-boyfriend that she had staged her own farce. She made her ex-boyfriend miserable for 10 years. Back at the house, Nick followed his lawyer's instructions. Nick publicly stated that he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance. He also admitted that he had cheated on his wife. He hoped Amy would give him a chance. By now, Amy had disappeared for 5 days. She had changed her image. She's met her new neighbors, and she's having a great time. But it didn't last long. The new neighbors accidentally found out that Amy was rich. So the next day, they robbed Amy. Amy drove away. Coincidentally, she ran into her first love at a bar. She was very busy. First love decided to take Amy to her villa to settle down. This woman tied a rope around her ankles. She made signs of being tied up. She stained her nightgown with red wine. Then she ran to the camera and collapsed in agony. Not long ago, Amy was brought back to the villa by her first love, but Amy realized that the whole house was covered in surveillance, and her first love was controlling her at every turn. One night, they were watching TV. Amy saw Nick confessing on TV. She was moved. This is the same Nick who made her heart flutter in the first place, so she decided to go home to be with Nick. And her first love could be the reason to go home, to explain his disappearance. One morning, Amy kissed her first love before he left the house, and bit his lip. She messed up her look. When her first love left the house, Amy acted out the first scene. At night, when the two of them were about to have an intense workout, Amy took out a hobby knife hidden under her pillow. She killed her first love with a single cut. The next day, Amy returned home covered in blood. Nick looked shocked, but in his heart, he knew Amy was in disguise. Nick took Amy to the hospital. The police arrived. Amy told them that her first love had kidnapped and imprisoned her, but the woman in charge of the case didn't think so. But she was interrupted by her boss. Amy smiled at Nick outside the door. She went home. Amy finally confessed everything to Nick. She threatened Nick to be a good husband for the rest of his life. Nick was afraid that one day Amy would kill him, so he tried to expose it to the press. But just then, Amy gave him a gift. She was pregnant. Nick looked puzzled and questioned. Amy told him she took Nick's frozen sperm from a year ago, and then she artificially inseminated him. She was sure Nick wouldn't abandon his child. Nick angrily pushed Amy against the wall, but he was speechless. They walked down the stairs, in front of the press. Nick chose to give in, and Amy smiled with satisfaction.